Because sometimes the most expensive lessons in life arrive slowly, not with a crash, not with a warning, but quietly, month after month, payment after payment. Carol didn't think about the mistake every day. Life continued. Mornings still began with coffee. The sun still came through the same kitchen window, the same small table where she had once filled out her Social Security application. But now, every so often, a thought returned, a quiet question. What if I had waited? At first the thought came rarely, just once in a while. But the more she understood the math, the more often it appeared. And over time, the question became harder to ignore. A few weeks after the lunch with her old coworker, Carol met her neighbor while walking through the park. Her neighbor, Linda, had just turned 61. They stopped to talk near a bench under a tall oak tree. Linda mentioned something casually. "I'm thinking about claiming Social Security next year." Carol paused. For a moment, she considered staying silent. After all, everyone makes their own financial decisions. But then she remembered the calculator, the numbers, the realization that had settled in her chest that night. So she asked gently, "Have you looked at how much it changes if you wait?" Linda shrugged. "Not really. I just figured money sooner is better." Carol nodded slowly, because that sentence sounded very familiar. It was the same reasoning she had once used herself. And in that moment, she realized something important. Most people making this decision aren't careless. They simply don't see the full picture yet. The first Social Security check can create a powerful emotional reaction. After decades of paying into the system, the payment feels like a reward, a return, a confirmation that all those years of work meant something. And because of that feeling, the decision to claim early can feel satisfying, even empowering. But the emotional reward of the first check can hide something important. Because Social Security isn't just about the first payment. It's about the next 300 payments, sometimes 400. And when someone looks at the decision that way, the numbers start to look very different. Imagine someone who retires at 62 and lives until 85. That's 23 years of retirement, 276 monthly payments. Now imagine that each of those payments is smaller than it could have been, by several $100s. At first, that difference feels small, but over 276 months, small differences become enormous ones. Exactly like Carol discovered. Many people imagine retirement as a short chapter, a few relaxing years, travel, family time, maybe a little part-time work. But the truth is, retirement today often lasts longer than the career that preceded it. Someone who begins working at 22 and retires at 62 worked for 40 years, but if they live to 90, their retirement lasts 28 years, nearly 3 decades. That means retirement planning must stretch across a very long timeline, and decisions made early echo for the entire journey. There was another detail Carol hadn't considered when she claimed early, something many people overlook. Social Security benefits increase the longer someone waits to claim them. Up until age 70, That means someone who delays benefits past their full retirement age and receives significantly larger monthly payments. For some people, waiting until 70 can increase benefits by more than 70% compared to claiming at 62. When Carol learned that number, she sat quietly for a moment, because the gap between what she received and what might have been possible suddenly felt even larger. A few months after their first conversation, David invited Carol to dinner. He wanted to talk more about retirement planning. David had been careful with his finances most of his life. He saved regularly, avoided debt, and when he approached retirement, he met with a financial advisor. At the time, the advisor had suggested waiting to claim Social Security. David didn't fully understand the reasoning then, but he trusted the advice. So he waited. Though, years later, that decision had become one of the most valuable financial choices he ever made, because every month, his larger Social Security payment covered more of his living expenses, which meant his savings lasted longer, which meant his retirement felt more secure. Sometimes, the biggest financial advantages come from decisions that feel boring at the time, like waiting. One of the biggest fears retirees face is running out of money. Not immediately, but slowly. As years pass, savings accounts shrink, investment balances fluctuate, unexpected expenses appear, medical bills, home repairs, inflation. All of these things can slowly erode financial stability. And that's why monthly income during retirement becomes so important. Because reliable income creates stability, and Social Security often becomes the most reliable income many retirees have, which means maximizing that income can dramatically change the retirement experience. There's another reason early claiming can become expensive. People consistently underestimate how long they might live. It's a common psychological bias. Most people imagine their retirement lasting 10 or 15 years, but many live 25 or even 30 years after retiring, especially those who reach their 60s in good health. And the longer someone lives, the more valuable a larger monthly Social Security benefit becomes, because those payments continue for life, no matter how long that life lasts. Years continued to pass. Carol settled into a comfortable routine. Morning walks, occasional visits with family, gardening in the backyard. Life was peaceful, but every so often, she would notice something small. A news article about retirement planning, a conversation between friends, a discussion about Social Security changes, and each time, the same thought appeared again. The alternative timeline, the version of retirement where she had waited. Years continued to pass. Carol settled into a comfortable routine. Morning walks, occasional visits with family, gardening in the backyard. Life was peaceful, but every so often, she would notice something small. A news article about retirement planning, a conversation between friends, a discussion about Social Security changes, and each time, the same thought appeared again. The alternative timeline, the version of retirement where she had waited. Eventually, Carol began sharing her experience more openly. Whenever friends approached retirement age, she would ask them a simple question. Have you looked carefully at when to claim Social Security? Some had, many hadn't, and when they saw the numbers, their reactions were often similar to hers. Surprise, curiosity, sometimes even shock, because the difference between claiming early and claiming later is often far larger than people expect. Over time, Carol realized that retirement planning often revolves around a single question. How long will my money last? Savings matter. Investments matter. But reliable income matters even more. And Social Security is one of the few sources of retirement income that lasts for life. Which means decisions about Social Security are not small decisions. They are foundational ones. Carol doesn't consider herself a financial expert. She doesn't give lectures. She doesn't write books. But she understands something now that she didn't understand before. Financial decisions made in our early 60s can shape the next 30 years of our lives. And sometimes, those decisions deserve more time, more thought, more patience, because once they are made, they often can't be undone. But there was another realization Carol slowly began to understand. Something even deeper than the numbers. Because money in retirement isn't only about comfort. It's about options. Options create freedom. And freedom becomes more valuable with age. When Carol first claimed Social Security at 62, she believed she was creating more freedom. More time. Less work. But years later, she realized something surprising. Waiting might have created even more freedom later. Because larger monthly income means something powerful. It means fewer difficult choices. Imagine two retirees. Both worked for 40 years. Both saved responsibly. Both enter retirement with similar lifestyles. But one receives $1,550 per month, and the other receives $2,300. At first glance, the difference might not feel dramatic, but retirement is built month by month. Groceries, utilities, insurance, property taxes, healthcare, transportation. Small expenses add up quickly. And when monthly income is higher, those expenses feel lighter, less stressful, less fragile. But when income is lower, every unexpected bill feels heavier. And that's something Carol began to notice. One autumn morning, Carol woke up to a strange sound, a slow dripping noise. At first she ignored it, but by afternoon, the sound became impossible to overlook. A leak in the kitchen plumbing. Nothing catastrophic, but enough to require a repair. The plumber arrived the next day, looked under the sink, then delivered the estimate, $480. Carol paid the bill. It wasn't devastating, but afterward, she sat quietly at her kitchen table because she realized something. When income is limited, every surprise becomes a small stress, a small calculation, a quiet moment of worry. And she wondered how different that moment might feel if her monthly benefit was larger. A few years later, another challenge appeared. Prices started rising. Groceries cost more. Utilities increased. Gas prices fluctuated. Insurance premiums climbed. Inflation affects everyone, but retirees feel it differently because many retirees rely on fixed income. And even though Social Security includes cost of living adjustments, those increases rarely feel dramatic. They help, but they rarely erase the pressure of rising prices. Carol noticed it slowly, month by month. The grocery bill creeping higher, the electricity bill slightly larger, the cost of everyday life slowly expanding. And during moments like those, the size of a monthly Social Security payment begins to matter even more. Not everyone regrets claiming early. Carol knew a man named Robert. Robert claimed Social Security at 62 as well. But his situation was different. Robert had serious health problems. He didn't expect to live into his 80s. For him, claiming early made sense. And in his case, it turned out to be the right decision. Because Robert passed away at 70. If he had waited until 67, he would have received far fewer payments. Stories like Robert's remind us of something important. There is no perfect answer for everyone. Retirement decisions always depend on personal circumstances. Health, savings, family needs, work opportunities. But the problem is, many people claim early without truly analyzing those factors. They simply assume it's the obvious choice. Financial planners often talk about something called the break-even age. It's the age where the total money received from claiming early equals the total money received from claiming later. For many people, that break-even point falls somewhere around age 78 or 80, which means something interesting. If someone lives beyond that age, waiting often produces more lifetime income. But if someone passes away earlier, claiming early may produce more total payments. The challenge is obvious. No one knows exactly how long they will live. And because of that uncertainty, the decision becomes complicated. One of the biggest changes in modern retirement is longevity. Previous generations often lived shorter lives. But today, many people reach 80. Some reach 90. And a growing number live beyond that. Which means retirement timelines are expanding. And longer timelines increase the value of higher monthly benefits. This is why many financial experts recommend delaying Social Security if possible. Not because early claiming is always wrong, but because longevity changes the math. Carol had another friend named Maria. Maria worked as a teacher for most of her life. She loved her job, loved her students, and when she turned 62, she faced the same decision Carol once faced. Claim early or wait. Maria did something Carol never did. She spent several weeks researching the decision carefully. She spoke with a financial advisor, looked at different scenarios, and eventually, she decided to wait. At the time, the decision felt frustrating because she wanted to slow down. She wanted the extra income, but she waited anyway. Years later, Maria often tells people something simple. Waiting was one of the hardest decisions I made, and one of the best. Retirement decisions aren't purely mathematical. They are emotional. After decades of working, people feel ready to stop. ready to enjoy life, ready to reclaim their time. Those feelings are completely understandable, but emotional decisions can sometimes overlook long-term consequences, and retirement is one of the longest financial chapters of life, which means emotions and math must work together, not separately. Carol doesn't spend her days regretting the past. Life is still good. She still enjoys her mornings, still enjoys time with family, still enjoys the freedom retirement provides. But every once in a while, when a conversation about Social Security appears, she feels a quiet reflection, a recognition that the decision deserved more analysis, more patience, more curiosity. And if she could go back, she might ask herself more questions. If Carol could speak to her younger self, sitting at that kitchen table at age 62, she would ask 3 simple questions. First, do you truly need this money right now? 7. What will your life look like at 80? And third, how different would your future feel with larger monthly income? Those 3 questions alone might have changed everything. Many people imagine retirement as a period of endless relaxation. But real retirement includes challenges, health changes, unexpected expenses, economic shifts, and sometimes family responsibilities, helping grandchildren, supporting adult children during difficult times, assisting aging relatives. All of those realities make financial stability even more important. And Social Security often becomes the foundation of that stability. Patience rarely feels exciting. It rarely feels dramatic. But in finance, patience often creates the biggest rewards. Waiting to invest, waiting to save, waiting to claim benefits. Small delays can produce enormous long-term effects. And Social Security is one of the clearest examples of that principle, because the system literally rewards patience. Today, when Carol speaks with friends approaching retirement, she doesn't give lectures. She simply shares her story. The story of a decision that seemed logical. The story of a calculator that revealed something surprising. The story of a realization that arrived 5 years too late. And most people listening to that story react the same way. They pause. They think. They reconsider their timeline. Which means Carol's experience may help others avoid the same mistake. Financial mistakes don't always destroy lives. Many are manageable. Many are survivable. But some mistakes quietly reduce opportunities, reduce flexibility, reduce comfort. And when those mistakes last for decades, their impact becomes significant. Carol's decision didn't ruin her retirement, but it changed it. And that difference is the lesson she hopes others will understand. Because sometimes the smartest financial decision isn't the one that feels best today. It's the one that protects the decades ahead. But there is one more part of this story. Something Carol didn't realize until much later. Because claiming Social Security early doesn't just change your income. It changes your entire retirement strategy. At the time she claimed her benefits, Carol believed Social Security would simply be a small supplement, a little extra money, something to help with groceries, utilities, maybe a few small trips. But as the years passed, something unexpected happened. Social Security slowly became the foundation of her retirement income, more important than she ever imagined. And that is the moment many retirees eventually reach. The moment when they realize their monthly Social Security payment is no longer just helpful. It is essential. When Carol first imagined retirement, she pictured a few peaceful years, maybe 10, 15 at most. But time moves differently in retirement. The years pass quietly. One season becomes the next. And before long, retirement stretches further than expected. 20 years, 25, sometimes even 30. And the longer retirement lasts, the more important monthly income becomes. Because savings accounts shrink over time. Investments fluctuate. Unexpected costs appear. But Social Security continues every month for life, which means the size of that payment matters more with each passing year. About 8 years into retirement, Carol decided to meet with a financial advisor, not because she was in trouble, but because she wanted reassurance, someone to review her finances, to confirm that everything was still on track. The advisor reviewed her numbers carefully. Savings, expenses, investments, Social Security. After about 20 minutes, he looked up and asked a simple question. When did you claim your Social Security benefits? Carol answered, 62. The advisor nodded slowly. Then he said something that stayed with her. You're not alone. Most people claim early. He explained that many retirees make the same decision, not because they are responsible, but because the system is complicated, and because the emotional desire to retire sooner is powerful. Then he added something else. If you had waited until 67, your monthly income would likely be around $700 higher today. Carol already knew that, but hearing it from a professional made it feel more real, more permanent, more undeniable. One of the most difficult parts of the Social Security system is that the decision is mostly permanent. Once benefits are claimed and several years pass, the opportunity to reverse the choice disappears. There is no reset button, no correction later. The monthly amount becomes fixed, adjusted slightly for inflation, but never recalculated as if someone had waited. Which means the moment someone claims benefits, their retirement income path is largely set. For decades, over time, Carol began noticing patterns in conversations with other retirees. 3 common mistakes appeared again and again. The first mistake is claiming benefits simply because eligibility begins. Age 62 feels like an invitation, a signal that retirement should begin immediately. But eligibility does not always mean optimal timing. The second mistake is focusing only on the next few years. Many people calculate how much money they will receive right away, but they rarely calculate what happens 20 years later. The third mistake is underestimating longevity. People imagine shorter retirements, but modern lifespans are longer than most expect, and longer lives dramatically increase the value of larger monthly benefits. If Carol could return to that moment at her kitchen table, just before she clicked the confirmation button, There is one question she wishes she had asked herself. Not about money, not about retirement age, but about the future. She would ask, what will matter more when I'm 80? Freedom today or security later? Because retirement decisions are rarely about right or wrong. They are about trade-offs. Comfort now or comfort later. And sometimes those trade-offs are much larger than they appear. There is something surprising about Social Security benefits. Every year someone delays claiming. Their monthly payment increases until age 70, which means someone who waits 8 years longer, from 62 to 70, could receive dramatically larger checks. Those larger payments don't just provide more money. They provide more protection. Protection against inflation. Protection against living longer than expected. Protection against market downturns. In many ways, delaying Social Security is like buying additional insurance for retirement. Insurance that lasts a lifetime. Today Carol is 74. Her life is calm, peaceful, full of ordinary joys. Morning walks, phone calls with family, quiet evenings at home, and every month, her Social Security payment arrives exactly as expected. The same deposit, the same amount. But now, when she sees that number, she thinks differently about it. She no longer sees it as simply income. She sees it as a decision made years earlier, a decision that still echoes today. Sometimes younger coworkers of her former colleagues reach out. They ask about retirement. They ask about Social Security. And Carol tells them her story honestly. She explains the decision she made, the calculation she discovered later, the $200,000 difference. But she never tells them what they should do. Instead, she encourages them to do something simple. Buzz. Thing. Run the numbers carefully. Because the most important retirement decisions often deserve more time than we give them. Retirement is one of the longest chapters of life. Longer than college. Longer than raising children. Sometimes nearly as long as a full career. And because it lasts so long, small financial differences compound over time. A few $100s per month can eventually become hundreds of thousands of dollars, which means decisions made at 62 can shape life at 82 or 92. Carol doesn't consider herself unlucky. Her retirement is still comfortable, still stable, still meaningful. But she understands something now that she didn't understand before. The most expensive financial mistakes are rarely dramatic. They rarely happen during crises. They rarely feel dangerous. Instead, they happen quietly, with a simple form, a routine application, a decision that feels harmless at the time, until years later, when the numbers finally reveal the true cost. And that is why, for anyone approaching retirement, one question matters more than almost any other. Now, when can I claim Social Security? But rather, when should I? Because the answer to that question can quietly shape the next 30 years of your life. And once that decision is made, there is rarely a second chance to change it.